No, that wouldn't work either. Oh, hello. You've caught me there just thinking about how on earth would I describe the sound of Cardiacs to a newcomer. Oh boy, Cardiacs. Could it be their childlike sense of wonderment, or the yearning for a childhood that is long gone? And also they have the very British regal sound, which is common in a lot of their music too. And then there's just the crazy circus music. Take a listen to this. And the wonderfully sublime, sensitive, odd time signatures that are scattered all over their music. You see, Cardiacs is a bit like having a sugar fix. It gets you really jittery, really excited, really energetic. But you know the problem with sugar, right? You just want more and more. Because sugar is addictive, and by golly, so are Cardiacs. So I first discovered Cardiacs when I was on a progressive rock forum and I was looking at just sort of suggestions for bands to listen to, and I noticed the name Cardiacs came up quite a lot. So I did a bit of digging around and listening on YouTube, and I think the first thing that struck me was their music videos. I've got to tell you, the first couple of music videos I watched of theirs, I thought, you know, am I having a seizure here? Am I dying? What's going on? You know, it was so intense and so in your face, and it was crazy. Absolutely crazy, nuts, abstract, bizarre, disgusting, psychedelic. It was all of these things, and I felt a little bit frightened, but compelled to keep watching. And so I kept watching these videos, and I kept watching and listening to the music, and there was just something intoxicating about it. But very, very intense. You know, it really grabbed you by the throat, and it was very hard to really kind of know what was going on and to unpack what was happening. You know, the singer, Tim Smith, had a very distinctive voice, very theatrical. You know, often there'd be times when he would whisper, you know, other times he would sound like a little schoolboy. Sometimes he'd be screaming and anguished, and his voice had such a wide range that it really was theatrical music, and you know, the music videos themselves were very, very theatrical. So essentially the band comprised of two brothers, that's Tim Smith and Jim Smith. Now all you need to know is that Tim is the very, very smart, clever genius, and Jim everyone hates. Another thing that you're going to have to embrace is the Cardiacs sort of fan base. Now, to say they're quite cultish does seem to be a slightly negative term, but there is a very, very strong and loyal fan base that support Cardiacs, and in particular Tim Smith. And it's a colourful and zany group of very, very lovely people. For those of you that are not in the know, the sort of the genius behind the band, Tim Smith, sadly had a cardiac arrest and was extremely poorly, and still is, and it means that he's no longer able to play music. The fan base have really pulled together to support him financially and emotionally and spiritually by organising lots of events where people go and listen to the music performed by other bands, and lots of merchandise that gets sold with proceeds going to help with his care. For a newcomer, what I would probably say is that the music is going to hit you hard. It's not going to be easy listening to start with. You know, their music is quite intense, very fast paced, with a lot of instrumental parts. and a lot of very complex instrumental parts with lots of things going on at the same time, but also quite jarring in some areas. So some of the sounds that are used and some of the harmonies are quite clashing, and some of the rhythms are also quite difficult to follow. And with the singing on top being quite theatrical, the whole musical landscape is very, very challenging. Now, the main instruments that are used in their music is predominantly vocals, bass, guitars and drums, and also keyboards. Now, the keyboards tend to be sort of pianos, electric organ sounds, and, you know, synth parts. On top of that, they also have some strings, but most commonly, particularly in the sort of earlier albums, you'll hear Sarah Smith, who plays saxophone, and the saxophone really adds some soul and just another layer to the music that I think is particularly beautiful. And she's able to add that sort of warmth and beauty to the music at times when it can sometimes be quite alien to us as listeners. So that's, you know, a lovely contribution too. I think the pinnacle really for the band was the album Sing to God. Now, this is a double album, but I certainly wouldn't say start with this if you're a newcomer. It's not to say that it's not a good album. It's just very, very difficult to unpack. There's a lot of very, very difficult, challenging music to get through, and obviously being a long album with a ton of ideas, even for me, someone who's, you know, listens to their music a lot, I still find it a difficult listen, and you have to be in the right frame of mind and the right mood to really enjoy it. I think their early albums are a great showcase because there's a lot of variety on the albums themselves. There's lots and lots of different kind of pace and tempo. You know, some faster numbers that are kind of all over in a blur. There's lots of different stylistic features that I think come back quite a lot in their music. As I said earlier, there's this sort of childhood nostalgia that I think features commonly in their music. There's also a kind of a regal British kind of humour there as well. Quite a few tracks have this sort of fanfare march-like feel, and you kind of get this sense that it's a very sort of British feel as well, probably because of Tim Smith's voice. But there's that kind of quirkiness that I think you only really kind of understand if you're British. There's a very, very wide range of time signatures. The music is very rarely just in 4/4, and it will rapidly change time signature all over the place. So you're never really going to feel like you're anchored to one particular place, and the music is going to shift you all over. So it's great if you like music that doesn't have that predictability of rhythm and beat. Now, probably my favourite thing about their music, and this is a testament to Tim Smith as a composer, is I absolutely love their chord progressions. Now, it's not uncommon for a song by Cardiacs to have anywhere from 10 to 20, maybe even 30 chord changes. Now, put that into perspective with your average run-of-the-mill pop song, where you may have just 4 chords that play over and over for the duration of a 3 or 4 minute track. With Cardiacs, a 3 or 4 minute track may have 25 to 40 chord changes. And it's interesting because they don't actually use particularly complex chords. They just stick to mostly major and minor chords. But it's the way Tim uses these major chords. So instead of using major chords that are common within a particular key, his major chords will get borrowed from all kinds of keys, and he'll move kind of sinuously throughout different keys. And I've noticed that actually the chords tend to follow the melody line. So whatever he's singing, the chords follow the direction of his voice. And because his melodies often travel through different keys very, very quickly, sometimes within a bar he will have moved through 2 or 3 keys, then the chords will also move alongside it. And so what that means is, as you listen to the music and you're trying to work out what chords are being used in a song, it's incredibly hard. and you'll listen to it and you think, well, these are just major and minor chords. Why can I not work out what chords are being played? And it's because they're moving through keys so quickly. It can be really hard. And I've listened to particularly the track Dirty Boy, which is from Sing to God. You know, trying to work out the chord progressions in that was really hard, because they're just not traditional chord progressions, and they're constantly moving and changing key. And I don't think I've really ever heard a band do that in quite the way that Cardiacs does. Okay, so you've heard a little bit about what they sound like. So what album would I recommend that you begin with? So I would say A Little Man in a House and The Whole World Window is probably the album that you would want to go for. I think by the time they'd recorded this album, they had sort of developed an identity, and they had a very particular style, and the musicianship was strong. And instead of it feeling like maybe early demos, which some of the earlier albums feel like, this feels like a really, you know, fleshed out, fully formed album. The opening track, A Little Man in a House, is really great. It's very, very emotional, very expressive and passionate and dramatic, and it ebbs and flows, and it's a wonderful way to start the album. Really, really great. Then you've got tracks like RES or Res, or, you know, whatever it means. No one quite knows, I don't think, exactly what the abbreviation is for. But you've got tracks like that which are very, very zany and comical and circus-like. Then you've got the sort of the rocking Is This the Life, which was a single release, which has a real driving, rocky feel and is perhaps the most conventional track on the album. And it's all topped off with the finale, The Whole World Window, which is really, really intense and was a very popular closer for live gigs. It's a great piece if you're feeling really down or low. There's something very cathartic about this piece, like having an emotional breakdown, but musically it's a pro would be that it's incredibly rewarding music. There's a wide range of music there to listen to. The performances are fantastic, the musicianship is stellar, and the songwriting is incredible. Another pro I would say is Tim Smith's voice. I think he doesn't get enough credit for his singing. His voice has so much range, it's incredible. There's not very many singers that I can think of that has such range as Tim Smith. You know, as I said before, sometimes he can just whisper, like a hushed whisper. Sometimes he'll sing, you know, in a very strident British kind of way, or pomp and circumstance, and then other times he'll scream and whimper. And, you know, there's not many singers that have such a huge, you know, a huge range of vocal style, sometimes within the same song. And I think that's a real, you know, a real strength for the band. The only con I have really is that you will either like them or you won't. There's no middle ground, you know, so I think if you find yourself not enjoying their music and you've really tried, I don't think you're going to like their music, basically, because it is a Marmite effect there. For some, it's just, you just can't get the connection, and that's fine. You know, if you don't get the connection to the band, you don't get the connection. But I think if you do get the connection, or even a little spark of a connection, then I absolutely guarantee you that you will get hooked, you will get addicted, and it will enter your soul, and it will stay there, and you won't be able to shake it. So in terms of difficulty rating, well, it's high. I'm going to give them a difficulty rating of 10. So what that essentially means is that their music is very challenging to listen to, quite disorientating, intense, full on. It's not going to hold your hand. You know, you're going to have to do some serious commitment to fully enjoy the music. And a lot of people might say, well, that's not what I want to do. I don't want to have to work hard when I listen to my music. Well, I think good music needs good listening. And I think if you want to really enjoy great music, you have to work hard at it as well. It's not just a one-way street. And no other music will ever sound quite the same once you've heard Cardiacs. There's just something that just doesn't compare. So, thank you very much for stopping by. I hope that's helped you a little bit in terms of your appreciation of the band Cardiacs. Now go, come on, go and listen to their music immediately, right away. That's an order. Take care, I'll see you next time. Bye.